Jonathan, you're staying with us, which is great, but we've just got so many people wanting to speak. So let's get some other voices in. We've got Peter, who's called from Denison. Morning, Peter.
Morning.
Morning, Peter. You're an architect, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Do you share Jonathan's reservations here?
I don't, I'm afraid, no. I'm a great believer in the reality of the situation, but I think he's just reacting slightly too far. I think my main problem here is that the housing market for generations has been used as a social regulator and even an economic regulator to such an extent that the economy is based on it. That's a real worry. But my main point in my call is about the mortgageability of property. What seems to happen in this country and the UK generally is that the individual is mortgaged and not the property. Mortgages, for instance, are usually based on a 50-year lifespan, which is the average person's working life. Instead of looking at situations such as Japan, where they mortgage properties for up to 100 years, the property is then handed over as a debt rather than as a profit to families.
Right.
That then keeps the cost of the property down and allows the property to be mortgaged and not the individual.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I'm wondering how that would affect the actual cost of the mortgage rather than anything else.
I mean, would you be advising anyone to buy now, Jennifer? I was thinking of Jennifer. She's looking at me, Peter.
Yes, I would.
You would.
I mean, I think the problem you just take it on the chin for the time being, and if you're able to do it, then you should do it.
Yeah. Okay, Peter, thank you very much. Jennifer has cheered up slightly. We've got Gino in Glasgow on the line. Good morning, Gino.
Good morning, Kaye.
Good morning. Are you a happy house buyer?
No, Kaye, I'm a happy house renter.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, we decided to Bank of Mum and Dad, per se, decided to put the house on the market. My son was going to university and we wanted to just realise the capital. However, it was in the start of the housing economic recession, and it took more than 18 months to actually sell the house. Ooh. And on the paper value, although I never looked at my property as an asset, it was my home, but yeah, you move on to another home, it's fine. But on a paper value, it dropped by 20%.
Oof.
However, when we came to actually sell it, we had a home report in it for, and we paid for that about £1,000 for a home report, and we actually the only offer we received in 18 months to 2 years was 50,000 below the paper, below the home report.
Gee.
Right, so these people that say that the housing market out there is not in the doldrums. Sorry, it is in the doldrums.
So what are you going to do now, Gino? You're renting just now, but would you buy again?
No.
No?
No, well, not in the foreseeable future, no. I'll rent. I've got an agreement now for a year with the proviso of another year. I know exactly what my monthly repayment is. It will not fluctuate with the interest rates. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the process of my 10 years in my previous property, with the interest rate increases, just like Jonathan was talking about, I had to find over the term something like £900 a month extra from when I started out on the mortgage.
Uh-huh. But, how long did you have that house, Gino?
11 years.
So, I mean, despite the fact that, in 2007, you were probably, you might have thought, if I sold it now, I'd make loads and loads of money, because we all sort of danced about with mythical figures.
Of course we do.
Over 11 years, did you make money?
Yes, still made money on it, Kaye. Yes, can't disagree that we did not make the money, but I'm being realistic in looking at the property market, and I want to dip my toe back in it for the next 5 years or 10 years and invest the capital that I've earned on the price of the house now. No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I want to look at where I can invest the money and best support my children as they go through university and senior school.
Gino, thank you very much indeed. You've also got peace of mind, which must be a lovely thing to have. Willie Hunter's a non-executive director of the ESPC based over in Edinburgh. Morning, Willie.
Morning, Kaye.
Good morning. Do you think Gino's doing the right thing there?
Well, it's certainly an option that's worth considering. I must admit, listening to Jonathan earlier, I felt I'd stumbled into an old episode of Dad's Army.
Well, listen, Jonathan is still here. You speak to him because, I'm fascinated.
I'm thankful, I have to say, that the market commentary and emotional outbursts such as Jonathan's will not influence the market in the long term. Ultimately, laws of supply and demand and macroeconomic factors will take hold. But I don't feel that... nobody is trying to say that the market is in a healthy state. We know the property market has been sick now for best part of 2.5 years. However, the prognosis, I don't think, is quite as gloomy as Jonathan is pointing out. I think clearly the evidence at the moment points to the fact that there has been a very gradual, and that's what we would hope for, a very gradual recovery. I am very much aware of the fact that pressures on the public sector, supply exceeding demand, lack of mortgage finance, all of these factors are bound to have an effect on the market in the long term. And I think those are the most important words. There's a balance to be struck here between Jonathan's slightly emotional and we're all doomed approach to the marketplace and just looking at it sensibly. It is a long-term investment.
So
I take umbrage that you're saying that I'm not looking at it sensibly, Mr. Estate Agent, whose job is to sell properties.
I'm a solicitor, actually, Jonathan.
And my job is to stop people losing money. Let me go through the reasons why we're in the throes of a housing crash. Once again, I'll just list them very quickly. Rising unemployment, very fragile GDP numbers, lending squeeze, buy-to-let hammered, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, in other words, estate agents, say that supply is going up and demand is going down, prices are massive against earnings, taxes are going up, and we're having cuts. That is the recipe of a house price crash, whatever way an estate agent puts it.
Yeah, but Jonathan, if we look over, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, I mean, the economy is cyclical. It has never been thus.
Over the last 30, look what happened where we were in the 1970s. We had nearly 20% interest rates and 25% RPI. What's happened in the last 3 decades? Inflation and interest rates have gone down practically in a straight line. What is the interest rate now? It's 0.5% because we're in a depression. We also have a credit squeeze, whereas previously we had the biggest lending increase in history.
Jonathan,
it has all reversed. That's what your listeners need to get to
okay,
grips with.
but let's make it real for people. And I mean, you know, I'm coming back to Jennifer, who's sitting also. What age are you, Jennifer?
31.
31. Have you got a good job?
Yes.
Quite secure, do you think?
Hopefully.
Has your partner got a good job?
Yes, he's a lawyer.
Right. So are you looking to make money out your property, or are you looking for a lovely place to live?
At the moment, a lovely place to live. And I would hope that we would make money because it was a good price. We didn't get a mortgage, so we've had to let that dream flat go. But hopefully we would make money.
Okay. Willie, does that sound so ridiculous?
No, I think that sounds a perfectly sensible way of approaching this. This property has, and this has been said earlier on in the programme, property was seen for a long time as a sure bet investment, absolutely. But investments by their very nature can go up and can go down. The property market can go up and has been for many, many years. At the moment, it's not in such a great situation and it could go down, and there could yet be further dips in the prices. But if you're looking on a long-term view, taking a long-term view, which I think Jennifer is doing, then there may well be, in my opinion, an opportunity for that to be turn out to be a good investment.
Put a time on that, Willie. Put a time on it, Willie.
Well, impossible. But nobody is foreseeing that property prices are going to go up in the next 2 to 3 years. I think if somebody said to me today, property prices will remain the same for the next 2 to 3 years, I would grab that with both hands, and I think most people in the property market would.
Okay.
But I think Jonathan, well, maybe he does subscribe to Facebook, but the panic button which he is pressing is not absolutely necessary at the moment.
Yeah.
Go on, Jonathan. Another bite, and then I'm going to read some text. We've got lots.
Kaye, PricewaterhouseCoopers that you read out has said that we are going to be in a 10-year housing depression. I would prefer to listen to PricewaterhouseCoopers than an estate agent any day. And one final point, your professional in the studio and her lawyer husband can't get a mortgage. That says it all.
Well, yeah, that is an interesting point. And Jennifer, I'm going to get you to comment on that, but I must read out some text here because we've got so many. And also, let me remind you of the number, folks. It's 0500 92 95 00. How are you feeling about the property ladder? Are you like Jennifer here, who's sitting in the studio with me, hopeful to get on the ladder, still sort of confident that over the long term, buying your own house, putting your money in bricks and mortar is the right thing to do? Or are you heeding what Jonathan Davis is saying here, which is do not touch it with the barge pole? Just in case you didn't get his message, I thought I would kind of reiterate it for you. A text here, the property and credit bubble were fueled by the fiat money system. Time for a new... I think I've said something wrong there. Time for a new economic system. Jonathan isn't depressing. He is a realist. The banks should have been left to go bust and net savers refunded by what was used as bailout money for untenable banks. Em in Glasgow says renting isn't money down the drain. It gives you shelter, a roof over your head, a home hopefully for life, at least if you live in social housing. People in this country have been manipulated into thinking that owning property is the be-all and end-all, and many are now paying the price, some of them for their own greed. And Stuart and West Kilbride, Jonathan is making a living out of being a prophet of doom and gloom. Is he Hugh Henry in disguise? It sounds like him. Anonymous texter, does Jonathan own or rent his house? Oh, Jonathan, do you own or rent your own house?
None of your business.
Oh, OK, thank you. We'll speak to Jack in Glasgow. Good morning, Jack.
Morning. That was a good sparring bout between those two men there.
Yes, it's still going on. But
why are you giving such credibility to one of the characters whose profession's also responsible for the housing bubble?
But see, well, hang on, just before we go on, Jack, I'm not giving anyone credibility. I'm giving people an opportunity to speak and you an opportunity to make up your own mind.
I wouldn't give them space, all of them. Snake oil salesman. Anyone that sells property for profit is a snake oil salesman, in my opinion. The thing is, I've got family that are builders. We know how much it costs for bricks. We know how much they pay the guy to put the thing together, and it never reflects anything but a very small fraction of what the final sale value of the house is that they want to sell.
Mm-hmm. And?
So what should be addressed is you have to have... It used to be called, I think it was a Blue Book or something like that, which was what quantity surveyors used. If you told them materials, they told you how much it was going to be per square foot or per square metre, and that was the cost of the build. It doesn't reflect the true value of how much it costs for a brick.
But is it not all about supply and demand? And there was a time, and I know we can barely imagine that it was ever there 3 years ago, that demand far outstripped supply.
Gullibility. Okay, what happened was all the social housing that was there, even the better social housing, was removed from the market at a stroke. We didn't allow local authorities to replace that social housing. What we get now is we've got an entire new generation of Rachmans that have moved in and are charging all these exorbitant rents, which are charged back to the state, because a lot of the poor sods in their houses can't afford the rent. Now, what we should be doing is the government should be buying up all these empty properties that have just been built that nobody wants and handing them over to local housing authorities to rent at a social rent.
Well, Jack, you're not a lone voice on this. I mean, I've heard that argument coming from all different quarters in recent times, that really we do need to get back into serious investment in social housing, and it's certainly something that we need to take seriously. We've got John in Dumbarton. Morning, John.
This is the problem. You don't have a good supply of good quality, low council, local authority places to buy. You're really left with the private sector. I came to Glasgow in the late 70s. We couldn't get a council, as me and my partner Andrew, so we were forced into the private sector, rented accommodation, and after a couple of years we were paying 150 quid a month for a rented flat at Broom Hill and nothing to show for it, and you only had a 6-month lease. You could be tossed out in the street after a couple of months. So you didn't have this security. We bought a house, and we have one in Dumbarton now. We bought it, we paid it off it was 40,000 in 1985. We've paid it off in 1993. And
how much do you think you would get for it if you sold it tomorrow, John?
I think they go for over 150,000. But a lot of people buy houses, but they find out when they retire, their income shrinks.
But sorry, John, I'm just trying to test Jonathan here, not test him, but to put something concrete to him. You bought that house in 1980 what?
1985.
1985. Okay, so we're talking 25 years ago. You bought it for 40 grand, and you think you could sell it for, say, 150?
Yeah, we didn't really buy it to make money. We wanted to buy because we wanted security where we could live. We never regarded the house as a means of making money. But also we paid a huge 15% and nearly interest rates. I'd love to have had the interest rates on my mortgage that are getting now almost 0%. That young lady's 31. She should aim to buy a house to bring a family up, not to regard property as a means of making vast sums of money.
No, I don't think Jennifer is, to be fair.
I'll give her security. She can do she can plant what she likes in her garden. She doesn't have to paint her door the same colour as... There's so many restrictions in rented accommodation. And also...
John, hang on, that's great. That is a great point that hasn't come up yet. And Jonathan, I do want you to consider this. There is a joy in owning your own house, which is not about money. It's your own wee place. You make it exactly the way you want it to. You put all your not just your financial investment in it, but an emotional investment in it. Has that not got a value?
Yeah, and do you know what? Every house with a mortgage has got a white little picket fence round it, and everyone's dancing around lilies. Do you not realise that there are 11 million mortgages in this country? Do you not realise that hundreds of thousands of Scots people right now are working for the banker and the taxman first and foremost before they work for themselves? How can people who have got a 100, 200, 300,000 pound mortgage, how on earth are they going to pay that back?
Willie Hunter, let me bring you back in again.
Oh, I'm glad of that, Kaye, because I'd just like to make one point very clear at the outset here.
That you are not a snake oil salesman.
No, I'm a director of the Edinburgh Solicitors Property Centre. The vast majority of properties in the Edinburgh area are sold through solicitors, who are often the family solicitor who give people advice about all aspects of their business, their personal life, and property is one aspect of it. So I don't want anyone to go away with the thought that all we're interested in doing is selling property. We have a much more widespread approach to it than that.
I appreciate that, Willie, but you will appreciate that over the last 10 years or so, estate agents, and I know you've explained that you are not an estate agent per se, but you know the profession has gained a bit of a, what kind of reputation? A wide reputation because of the amounts of money that were flying around. It was part of the whole thing.
Kate, no, I make no apologies for, the fact of the matter is that property has been very easy to sell for 10 or 15 years, and there's no question about it that for when the property was at its peak, all you had to really do was stick it into the ESPC or the GSPC and sit back and wait for the offers to come through. And therefore it was perceived as being easy money. I would like to think that the vast majority of people who are selling property on behalf of clients are doing an awful lot more than that and giving them general and more widespread advice. However, I can understand why people perceive it that way, but that's history now, and we're in a different market now. We are where we are, and we have to adopt to the market that we have at the present time.
We're going to have to wind this up, unfortunately. But Willie, just to give a different view, we've got Jennifer sitting here, looking ever more depressed. As she said, she's 31, she's in a good job, her partner's in a good job. Do you think that if she can get the mortgage, which is a different story, but complicated by your nationality, isn't it? Yeah. Then would you advise her to go ahead and buy?
Well, Jennifer and her solicitor partner have obviously considered this very, very carefully. They're not making a wild investment here. They're making taking a carefully considered risk. If they're prepared to take that on a long-term basis, then I would encourage Jennifer and say, go for it. But she's doing it with open eyes. She's going into it knowing very well that the market may fall, but the market may also rise. But it's a long-term investment.
Okay.
Good luck, Jennifer.
Yes, good luck, Jennifer. Thank you very much to Willie Hunter and to Jonathan Davis. Jennifer, how do you feel after being walloped with all of that stuff this morning? You came in here thinking, I'd like to buy a house, and you got whoosh.
I think it's a slight wake-up call, actually. I think we're just going to sit back and accumulate more for a deposit, I think. And just listening to Jonathan, I think he's maybe validated our decision.
Right, so you are going to kind of call Kaye.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, very best of luck in whatever you decide to do. Thanks very much for coming in this morning. And as I say, I really hope I haven't ruined your Thursday. I had no intention of doing that for anybody out there. You can keep your calls coming on this, if you like, on the property ladder and how you feel about it. Is it a ladder or is it a snake? 0500 92 95 00.